All right. We'd like to call to order our Riverdale City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. Please let the record show that all members of the City Council are present, as well as members of the city staff and members of the public. I've asked Councilor Hilton if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we've asked Councilor Merrill if she would lead us in an invocation.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee at this time and ask for Thy guidance and direction as we go about this council meeting. Father, please enlighten our minds, our thoughts, and our words, and the directions that we take, that it can be reflective of Thy will. We pray for Riverdale City. We pray for all the representatives of it, those that are employed by the city and those that are elected. We also especially pray for the residents. We would like to have a special prayer, Father, for those that serve and protect Riverdale, that Thou would bless them and watch over them and their families. We pray for our nation, and we also pray for other nations, especially those that are in extreme conflict, that they can desire resolutions and seek peace. We are grateful for all that we have been given, and we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilor Merrill and Councilor Hilton. We now have a time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding any concerns or ideas. No action will be taken during this time. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you do approach the microphone, please state your name and the city that you reside in. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the presentations and reports for our meeting. I do have a few items, quite a few actually. I'll try and make it brief. Hopefully all of you knew that we had our first Riverdale Farmers Market last night, and from everything I've seen, it was a huge success. The vendors, many of them sold out of their products. The residents were thrilled with it, and so it wasn't perfect. There's going to be some parking things we got to work out and some power and some different things, but it was very well received, and they're excited to hopefully continue that next year. Thanks to anybody that helped. I know Rich Taylor played a huge role in it. Probably public safety did too, but anyway.
What part of the park was it at?
It was in the parking lot down by the large
The
Bowery.
north end, yeah.
Oh,
North
okay.
end, yeah.
Right.
That was part of the problem, is we didn't know how big that was going to be, and so we picked that place thinking that for a first try it'd probably be big enough, and it probably wasn't. I think there were 20, I think I counted 20 booths and another 5 or 6 food trucks, and that whole lot was completely full, and there were cars down to the fire station all the way to that first house as you go down the hill.
And on the other side, which is definitely not ideal.
No.
But yeah, they said they had over 1,000 people.
That's great.
So
Because I went to the community center, and the parking lot was, because there's nobody inside.
yeah.
That was some of it there, yeah.
Yeah, so that was great, and something that the residents have wanted for a long time, so that was exciting for them. We do have the Meet the Candidates night tomorrow night, so we're excited for that. We'd invite anybody that's interested to go to that, both residents and employees. We have our city cleanup on October 30th, so you might get questions about that. Remember, that's the weekend thing where they put it out, and then on Monday morning and possibly Tuesday, they come around and pick that up. There's a family fright night, which is probably one of our best attended activities. That's on October 20th at the community center. There is a fee with that. Is there usually a fee with that? Do you know, Mr. Brooks?
Well, there's 2 different Halloween activities.
Oh, is there? Okay.
The rec center has the paid one for the families on the 20th.
Okay.
And then there's the free one. I think it's on the 28th
Okay.
or the 30th.
Okay.
But that's the big free one that they do every year.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And then it looks like the last thing I have is just a reminder. We will have another meeting before that, but just get it on your calendars. The Veterans Program will be on the 10th, which is not the 11th, but it'll be on Friday the 10th. So that's all I have. We do have our next item is a presentation from UDOT regarding the 5600 South construction update. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, city staff. Thank you for having us. My name is Brenda McDonald. I am a UDOT Public Engagement Representative for the 5600 South project. I also have Elmer Acevedo. He supports this project from a public engagement standpoint. Thanks for having us back. We've been here a couple times, so we're happy to be here and give an update today. And thanks for running that slide presentation for us. So just really quickly, high-level overview, project benefits. We are completely redoing a whole new interchange at the 5600 South, widening the road from 5600 South all the way down to 3500 West.
Oh, yeah. Is your microphone on? Is that button popped up?
Is it on? Can you hear me okay?
Michelle, would
Try
you
going up
to
with it.
expand that?
Pop the button up. I think it was on already, but yeah.
Can you hear me? Everybody hear me now?
There we go.
My apologies. Thank you. Okay, so we are reconstructing the interchange at 5600 South from 56 all the way, and we're widening 56 all the way down to 3500 West. Some of our improvements you can see, we're adding bike lanes throughout the corridor, some intersection improvements around 1900 West, a new hawk signal at 2100, new pedestrian bridge at the DNRG trail, and a new signalized intersection at 3100 West. Next slide, please. So we are now in the phase 2 of our schedule. We actually just hit a really big milestone. I'm sure you have all seen it out there. The new exit for Riverdale Road is very apparent. You've probably all taken that already, I'm sure. So we have the new I-15 on-ramp configuration. We did a traffic shift of 3 lanes to the west, going northbound. We've reconfigured a new northbound off-ramp to Riverdale Road, and we've shifted our collector distributor, which is the way into Riverdale Road. Eventually the Riverdale Road exit will be suspended permanently. You'll see that go away eventually. We do have some left turns restrictions on Freeway Park Drive. We've met and coordinated with all those businesses along Freeway Park. So you cannot make a left to or from Freeway Park Drive or from 5600 South to Freeway Park Drive. So we've done a lot of coordination with Hill Air Force Base, MIDA, Northrop Grumman, all those businesses, and the property owners along that corridor there. Feel free to hit the next slide, please. And then some of our outreach that we've done, Riverdale City's been very helpful in getting the message out to drivers and stakeholders in this area regarding those restrictions. You can see some of the images that our graphics team has put together there regarding the new on-off ramp closure and the new access to Riverdale Road. And we have started some I-15 bridge demolition activities to start accommodating that new bridge reconstruction that will happen this winter. So yes, the new collector distributor is open. It is ready for drivers to be on. It will get you access to I-15 northbound, Riverdale Road, Freeway Park Drive. We also forgot to add I-84 on here, so you can take I-84. If you get off here, you can get to I-84 with this new CD road. And this will be in effect through next year, summer of next year. What's to come? So this winter, we have a lot of utility work going on Freeway Park Drive that starts next week. We're going to be in those parcels, in those properties, doing some buried utility work and impacting light poles. Lifetime, we're going to be coordinating with them very closely, and Boyer, the property owner there, to get that work done. And then we'll be doing some winter utility and intersection activities along 5600 South on the south side. A lot of drainage work, storm work, and utility work will be taking place. So you'll see more of us out there this winter, but that's kind of the focus. So we're not going to have another big traffic shift until next spring of next year. So that is the plan. To get a hold of us, that's our hotline number. We do have some business cards up by the front office up there. I've left some here on the desk. I encourage anyone in here to sign up for project email updates. You can send us an email to 5600south@utah.gov. We send out updates almost weekly regarding construction impacts and any closures, things like that. And then we have added our design to our website, so feel free to visit our website. You can actually scroll through and review what the final design will look like as well. So that's all we have. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Any questions or comments? I did have one. Just wanted to thank you for all you've done. You know, residents aren't thrilled with some of the stuff that's going on, but it's nice to be educated and at least be able to answer their questions. We did have a meeting with UDOT last week, and we did express that to them, too. You guys have done a great job at least keeping us so that we can at least tell them what's going to happen and what to expect, even if it's not maybe what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
You know?
No, thank you.
Thank you for coming and
Thanks for sharing that.
keeping
And
us educated.
definitely relay any concerns that
Okay.
residents or drivers have. Please send them to us. We're happy to field those questions, concerns,
Okay.
as much as we can to mitigate any issues that anyone has. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
All right. We'll now move on to item number 3, the City Administration Report. Mr. Brooks.
All the department heads' reports are in your packet. Anybody have any questions on any of those? And Cody, I apologize for him. He had a family emergency tonight, was not able to make it, even though we would have liked him here, but that happens, you know. If there's none on that, then October anniversaries. I wanted to highlight a couple of those. We've got a couple that are on the even years that we would recognize tonight. But in addition to that, Kristen out in the fire department is at 19 years. Did she start when we did, or are we a year ahead of her, Stacy?
You and her started the same month.
Oh, we did?
I
Okay.
started 2 months later.
Gotcha. That tells you all the old people that still work here in the city, so. I better not do that, huh? Chief Shawley, who happens to be here tonight, sitting at 8 years. And then, as far as our even years, we have Mr. John Flynn, who is celebrating his 5 years. And we have a little packet and a thing for him, Mayor, if you want to give this to him. I want to say something about John just because I get to see him in action a lot. And I don't know what his official title or assignment is, but John's one of these handymans that can do about anything. And we had some holes in the ceiling. It's been kind of fun to watch him patch that up the last couple of weeks. And they give him about anything you can imagine in the city. And he and his little partner in crime, they're about as good as they come to get that done. And the senior center out there that we have all those issues and any of those remodels and all that kind of stuff, that's your man right there. Takes care of all that. So John's been a huge addition to the city, and we appreciate everything he does. And Mayor's got something here for you, John. You have to give a speech when you're done.
Okay, well, John, I would kind of reiterate what Mr. Brooks had to say. Sometimes I forget that everybody has kind of their positions in public works. There's parks guys and roads and whatever, but you seem like wherever I see the public works guys, he's there. I mean, during the flooding, it seemed like he was always either driving the tractor or throwing the sandbags, or anywhere I go, he seems like he is public works. So anyway, we appreciate you. We hope it's been a good 5 years for you. We have a certificate for you, and also a little gift for you too as well. So super happy to have you here, and appreciate you. So thank you very much.
And we had one other one that's a 5-year anniversary, Brenda Green. I don't see Brenda here. She's through our business administration, helps keep some of these buildings clean and spiffy, so we'll make sure that she gets her stuff. The remaining of those were more just smaller anniversary dates. So. Our staffing authorization, that's in your packet. Don't know if there's anything that's changed on that. And finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, but the last thing I'm going to do here is just the community development report. And as part of that, I'll just update you on a couple of those things. I was going to do it at the end, but I might as well just do it now. Our Shake Shack update. We pulled off a pretty good coup on that one. We got our transformer in late last night, and they are up and powered, so no generator.
Wow,
that was
that's great.
Reaching out to some contacts and some people we had. We were able to find one, and it was a huge win.
The city helped him?
Yeah.
We didn't buy it, we just.
No, we didn't buy it, but it was installed and done this morning. I got a phone call from Kirk Nigro that's helped us before on things, letting me know that he found one for me. So I was begging and pleading last week so we didn't have to get a generator in there.
Good guy. That's good.
We found out a little bit later after I'd met with you guys last time that the health department was probably going to shut that down. So this was huge. We had to get it done. So it worked out nice for us. So that opening day is still set for November 6th. And so all that's been worked out that we talked about before. I did indicate to them that everything has to be completed. So they've still got their final inspections and things like that. I'm not sure where Chief Shawley is on that. I know there's still a hood test on that, but they should be able to get that done. I think that's still going to go. So it should be planned on that November 6th as the opening date. I don't know about a grand opening. Have they said anything about that? So there's that one. A hauling update, I'll just give you a little bit on that. I go by there probably every day or at least once or twice, usually coming in and going out because I come in that way. I take 31st Street exit and I'll circle around, go down there and look at it. This is at Leslie's. I took some notes here and I couldn't remember what the hauling update was, and then it dawned on me it was Leslie's. But there was more moving again this week. All those big piles of junk, if you've seen those, they're pretty much gone. So they've been hauling all those this week. They are ripping up more cement, like on the pads and things like that, and they're piling those up. So the cement piles are a little bit bigger, but I think all the metal and all the junk is gone. And so they've got to get those pads out of the way just so they can start scratching dirt and things. So that's getting closer and closer and closer. So good progress on that as well. And the other things the mayor covered. The grand opening. There's a grand opening Friday for Uptown Cheapskate. That's in the Katrubas Plaza over there across the street behind Buffalo Wild Wings. That's kind of a cool little store if you get a chance to go in there, but that is Friday at 9:30 if you can make that. The Axio Auto was postponed. That was going to be Monday, this past Monday, and then there was a few issues that popped up, so we've pushed that one back, but we'll let you know when we know on that one. Everything else, I mean, if you get up to Tesla and see that, the ground's completely different. That road was closed. Did you guys all see the email today from Sean about them closing that? They're planning on paving the road, if at least starting it today, up to that processing center. So they had to close some of that today to get that done. I'm not exactly sure where they're at. I saw something this morning, but I didn't later today. Most of those, the other ones are still moving forward that we've talked about before. There are two new ones, bricks and minifigs. I'm not exactly sure, Mike. What is?
It's Legos, like used in the Legos.
Oh, that's right.
Where's that going to go?
Over next to Goat Haircuts in that plaza where Great Well is and
Just
stuff.
ask you, there was the pawn on 1150 pawn shop. There was a bookstore in Lego. Is that the same guy?
No, it's a different. This is a franchise, but then they have local franchisees that get in on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you look at their website, you'll see there's quite a few of them throughout the country.
And then the last one was American Freight, wasn't it, Mike, the
Yeah.
other new one? That they've also submitted a lot of their paperwork. So keep moving forward. They're not really fast, but they're still coming in, trickling in, and probably better than a lot of cities are experiencing. So we appreciate that.
Quick question. The Ashley Furniture,
Still going.
what time frame are they looking at? Or do we?
You know, I was over there last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, and they don't really know still. They're getting closer. There's still some issues. There's a couple of code issues I know that they've got to fix that just aren't going to work, but they're getting closer.
Okay. Are they half as big as R.C. Willey? As big?
They're I don't know if they're as big as R.C. Willey's, but if you walk in that building, you'd be shocked at how big that is. Now, they're not taking the whole building, but it's huge. It's way bigger than I ever thought. When they took out that, what's a mezzanine or whatever they call it, all around the sides and around the back and stuff where they stored a lot of things, you can't believe how big that thing is. That's massive in there. So hopefully, if those all generate sales, that could be a good little win for us.
This is the store location from their Layton location, so this would be an improvement upon what they're currently operating in right now in Layton.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Any questions on any of those? That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We'll now move on to the consent items. We have consideration to approve the meeting minutes from the October 3rd council work session and the council meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes other than what we already saw? Seeing none, a motion to approve would be in order. Council Arnold?
Move to approve the consent items with the changes that have been identified.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move on to action items. Number 1, consideration of ordinance 973, approving updates to Title 10, Chapter 27, flood damage prevention. Ordinance as found in the Riverdale City Code, requested by the Community Development Department and FEMA partners. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. I think I've covered a lot of it in the work session, but just a quick summary that FEMA is requiring that for us to continue in compliance with the flood insurance rate map and the flood impact study requirements for the river, or Weaver River and Birch Creek mostly are the areas we're talking about, that we have this code update. And so I have ran it through our state partners who have reviewed that to make sure we're in compliance with what FEMA expects of us, and being FEMA Region 8, they have given us the thumbs up and saying that's good. We did have a public hearing with the Planning Commission, which we're required to do on October 10th. And during the public hearing, there were no public comments provided prior or during the public hearing. And then the Planning Commission recommended approval as the language is found in your packet. So with that, I think that's the long and short of it, unless there's any additional questions for me. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Eggett? Council Arnold.
Move to approve ordinance 973 as stated within the packet.
Second.
With a few of the spelling errors or corrections that we
I'll
identified.
second that too.
Okay, we have a motion and the second agrees.
Almost.
Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Hilton,
Yes.
Counselor Hanson,
Yes.
Counselor Stevens,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold,
Yes.
Counselor Merrill.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to item number 2, discussion and possible action regarding Utah Military Academy proposal regarding a school resource officer. Chief Warren.
All right, councilors, mayor, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys. As we spoke before, just kind of give you a brief overview of what we're looking at. As you guys know, UMA has been a valuable member of our community here for several years, and it looks like they're here for the extended in the future with what's going on as far as the building and plans that are in place. Over the years, like I says, UMA's approached us and wanted a resource officer. We haven't been able to facilitate that because of the budgeting issue. They've come up with creative ideas to try to hire us part-time and do different things. We always just erred on the side of we'll just be more involved. As you can see, we sit in their school zone. We try to be there every morning. Afternoons, if we're not on calls, we go guest speak all the time. Our officers call there on a regular basis. And we just provide the best service we can without utilizing a resource officer. Could you hit the next slide for me, Michelle? Just a little bit brief background. They service grades 7th through 12th. They have about 550 students there. Next one. There's a lot of benefits to a school resource officer. First and foremost is safety. In today's world, with active shooters, especially in schools, that's our number one priority, is to keep kids safe. Not just from active shooters, but from other kids, whether it be bullying, whether it be drugs, it could be theft, it could be any number of things. And to be quite honest, junior high and high school kids are our most vulnerable population in society. This is where we really make the difference as to where their lives can go. I mean, there's a good foundation laid in elementary, but junior high, high school is where some of those things take place. And I feel like it's very important to have some good, solid leaders and mentors and guidance in those schools. And I feel like when you have an officer there, it's a big deterrent for criminal activity. It creates a lot of positive interaction with police and with the students. And, you know, we can educate them on the criminal justice system, police procedures. It's a great partnership. So there's benefits to the students, but there's also benefits to the officers as well that I haven't put on here. It's a great opportunity for officers to have those positive interactions with the community, to be able to really make a difference with some of these youth and help, some of them are struggling, they can take time, mentor them, help them. And then there's always those overachievers that you just want to mentor and help as well that aren't maybe problematic, that helps. That's where we maybe recruit the future cops of America. Go ahead, hit the next for me. We talked about school resource officers' responsibilities. Number one thing is safety. They're going to be doing the law enforcement, so anytime we have any kind of call there, they're going to be responsible for that. It's going to keep our patrol guys free. Now, you ask how many calls we get there, it just kind of depends. We generate typically a call there all the time, or every day, because we're in the school zone. So really the officer, that's how he's going to start his day. He's going to be out there, out in front of the school, greeting students as they walk in, making sure these students come in safe. When you look at some of the worst concerns, which would be school shooters, when they see that officer stand there, it's a big deterrent. Throughout the day, they'll foot patrol through the school hallways. They'll patrol the surrounding areas. If we're having problems with students at the park, vandalizing our parks, which we have one fairly close, or maybe the stores, they'll be patrolling those areas as well, making sure the students are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Parking lots. So they're going to stay pretty busy throughout the day. We're going to build relationships with not just the students, but their parents. A lot of times, the students are the easy ones. Sometimes the parents are the hard ones. The low-level stuff, when I say low-level crime, we're talking, there's state legislator now, if we have kids that have e-cigs and tobacco, well, that's handled on an administrative level when it's on school grounds. So the contract that we would have with these guys and the training with our officers would be very strict in the fact that we can help facilitate dealing with that, but that happens needs to be dealt with on an administrative level at the school. The type of crimes our officers would be investigating that are there, which we do now, are your thefts, your fights, sex offenses, things of that nature. Some of those cases that we get now take a lot of time to follow up on and investigate. As far as, if it's a sex offense, we got to do CJC interviews, we got to interview the suspects, look at their camera systems, there's a whole number of things that we got to do. So it ties up a lot of time with our officers and our detectives. Well, this would offset some of that because anything that's attached to UMA would go to that resource officer. Now, certainly if it was something bigger, we would use more resources there, just as we would anyways. Well, we talked about some of these other things in this list, but we can kind of go to the next. So the history of this, how did this come to be? Well, like I said before, they've approached us just about every year wanting us to be involved, wanting a resource officer. I told them we couldn't do that unless we treated them like any other school as far as from a law enforcement agency. They agreed to do it this time, and so I went out and contacted Weber School District, and historically, Weber School District's contract with the law enforcement agencies was 40%. They paid 40% of the full-time cost of an employed officer for 3/4 of the year. So school's only in 3/4 of the year. So they don't pay for the full year. They're just 75% of the year. That's during the summers, those officers, depending on where you're at, in the county, they're utilized up for boat patrol. Every city's different. Here, we'd utilize them in our patrol. But so the way they figured that was the full cost of a full-time employee multiplied by 75%, that's 75% of the year, and then multiply that again by 40%. Well, this year they just renegotiated the contract. The chiefs that have officers that are affiliated with Weber School District sat down with them, and they come up with a new equation. It's still the same full cost. It's every cost of the officer times it by multiplied by 75%. In the first year, they're going to increase to 50%. Year 2, 60% of the full-time cost, and then year 3, 70%. So there's quite a big increase that you're going to see that the school district is going to be paying these law enforcement agencies. And I think as an example, I don't want to get throw the wrong number out, but I think the sheriff's department, with the amount of resource officers they had, generated another $1 million came in from the school district. So I took this to them thinking, gosh, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I mean, we really want a resource officer. If we could afforded it all along, we would have. As you guys know, we've had other priorities, and we can't justify funding a full-time resource officer here in Riverdale when every other school pays. That was kind of how I explained to UMA all these years that we can't justify it to our citizens to flip the whole bill when every other school pays 40%. Well, we reviewed this with them, and they're 100% on board. They're like, we want it. We want an officer as soon as we can get one. And so, with that being said, I've met with Mr. Brooks and Ms. Como and Cody Carden, Mr. Carden, just about how this would all look. And what I did was basically took the contract from Weber School District, and I says we just got to mirror that. That way, we're not charging them more, we're not charging them less. I think that's the fairest way to handle this. So we did that. Could you hit I don't know if you guys can see these. Sorry, I just kind of screenshotted them out. But that's kind of the figures that each school, as you can see on there, would be paying Weber School District. Do you have it on your guys' laptop? No.
Can I just?
I can tell you the numbers if you want. Go ahead.
Okay, they're a charter school. There's other charter schools like Quest and
That's correct.
Reggie. Do they have resource?
Not that I'm aware of. We would actually be on the frontier of this, which I would be proud to say we are. Because here you have these kids that are in public schools, and they have all the benefits of having a resource officer, not just for the most important thing, which is safety, but all these other valuable things that we spoke about. And so I got to give credit to UMA because, they're making this a priority. I mean, they probably have other places they could spend this money, but they're making it a priority, their student safety and some of these other benefits that we've talked about. So they would be one of the pioneers in this, as would we, Riverdale Police Department. On a side note, there was legislation this year, it didn't get very far, where they proposed a resource officer in every school. Every school. And so that may be something that's coming eventually. It didn't get a lot of takeoff, but I'd imagine someone will be back this year with some sort of modified bill. Now, at the end of the day, we ask, how are we going to afford that? As far as, there's all these different tax entities. Obviously, we all know the school district, and there's the state, there's the cities, there's the counties. So that's something they all got to work out. But at the end of the day, it all comes out of the same pocket, and that's our residents, whatever route it goes. And so they'll just have to figure out how they're going to manage that. But that's a possibility that could happen. I don't foresee it being in every school, but I think it's becoming a very big priority. Just an example because it is, we blew it up.
You can scroll over.
Okay, so they're all the same. So as you can see, they're all the same as far as their consistency. Now, there was one school that did a part-time one, which was Snowcrest. They decided they didn't want a full-time up there, the school district, and so it was just a part-time one. So the portion's cut in half. You can hit the next slide. Okay, so we kind of already talked about this. Every school in Weber County has a resource officer, every junior high and high school. UMA is kind of unique because it's kind of 2-in-1. It's a junior high and a high school in the same location. The cost is shared between the local agency and the school district, as we just discussed. I feel like the best practice would be to follow the contracts that are already in place with Weber County, so we're fair and equitable, comparatively speaking, to the other schools and other communities. We talked about the 40%. I don't need to go over that again. We talked about renegotiating the formula. This is just a glimpse. You can hit the next one, Michelle. Of the contract, how it would work. We kind of talked about that as well, but it talks about how it increases each year by 10%. At the end of these 3 years, we would renegotiate the contract, and it would start at the 70% level. The only reason, from what I understand, that it went 50, 60, 70 was they wanted to ramp up to this. They didn't want to just hit them all at once with a 30% increase. And so, as part of that contract, we would first of all make sure that there's a commitment with them to continue on with the program. As long as they're committed, I don't see how we couldn't be committed to keeping these kids safe and having a resource officer there if they're willing to, pay their fair share. But as part of that, we would renegotiate. We have salary increases, benefit package that increase, as we all know, every single year. So that full-time employee cost analysis, where they get the percentage-wise of, right, 75% of that number would go up at, the next contract. We would reevaluate where it's at, and certainly I think it's just inevitable it's going to go up some. To what extent, we don't know, but we would want to make sure they stay in line so we're not falling behind on that percentage. Go ahead and hit next. You might have to scroll out on this one. Well, maybe go to theirs. Okay, we can start here. So this is just kind of what they would be paying or contributing, rather, for the services of Riverdale Police Department having a resource officer year 1, 2, 3. And I've just kind of compounded how much money would be coming in year 4, year 5, year 6, and you can see the money that would be coming in. Can you scroll out? Because they're kind of a side by side. On the right, like I said, we wouldn't want to. We certainly want to hire another officer. We could always use more officers. As the city grows, we're going to need more, just with these apartments and things, potentially maybe another officer. But adding this resource officer is definitely taken away from what we just got. And as I explained before, we're going to handle this with our day shift, so it shouldn't affect our coverage hours. But I want to make sure before we hire another full-time guy that there's a commitment there to continue on with this program. Because, let's say we do year 1 or maybe year 2, and they're like, oh, if we just don't have the money and they don't have the long-term financial ability to continue this program, then it wouldn't be a very responsible thing for me to do is come in here day 1, ask for an officer, and then have them go. Now we have this employee that we don't want to fire. And so I feel like we need to start off on this trial period. And I feel like it's going to be a great relationship. I have no reason to think that it's not. But I am concerned because it's not funded through traditionally like Weber School District is. They have different ways of funding sources. So I want to make sure it's a viable thing. And so at year 4, as long as that commitment's there, the city's doing good. As far as our revenues, income, we would like to add that officer. So for the first 3 years, virtually, we're going to basically reallocate some of the resources we have. We're going to do a little bit more with less. To put an officer in the school is what we'd propose. We will be able to use them in other areas, but I feel like that would be the best route. And then at year 4 would be where we would, as long as they're committed and things are looking good, we want to add an officer to kind of backfill that position. But the money that they're going to be, it's certainly going to, when I say it's certainly going to cost the city some money because we're paying the officer to be there. They're just paying part of the contribution, the 70% by the year 3. Go ahead, next. So this is kind of probably jumping ahead on my speech, but this just kind of covers what we talked about. Really, we wouldn't have to increase our budget to probably year 6. We would be increasing it because the money's coming in. It would be coming into the general fund, that would be coming from UMA, but in theory, the money they're paying over those years by year 4 would be enough money to basically fund a brand new officer, all their equipment, all their stuff, pay for year 5 and into year 6, and so we wouldn't have a major increase in our budget for the police department until then. And I feel like that's the responsible thing to do because I want to make sure, one of my top priorities is safety's obviously number 1. And I feel like if we can do a little more with less, not compromise safety, then our pay and benefits for my officers and the employees of the city are the top of the priority. If we don't have that structure, right, then it kind of becomes hard to recruit and retain good people. And so I just trying to balance the two, and I feel like this is a wise way to do it. Is there any questions that I can answer while I'm here?
Councilor Arnold.
How many schools have city officers? I know most of them are Weber County.
Roy City, North Ogden, Harrisville, South Ogden. Every school that has a Weber, all the Ogden schools. So Ogden City and Ogden School District, all Ogden schools are within Ogden School District. So they have a contract as well through Ogden City. They have a resource officer, I believe, in every junior high. I think they're middle school there.
So Roy High School has a Roy
Has-
City officer.
Yes, Roy High does. Roy has Roy officer. They also have one in Sandridge and Roy Junior. Rocky Mountain is the county. South Ogden has a South Ogden officer. Harrisville has a Harrisville officer. Matter of fact, Officer Edminster. We actually hired a few resource officers. Let me tell you, they make great officers. Edminster was with Harrisville. He did a good job. When he came to us, he was the resource officer at Orion. Zog was out at Rocky Mountain before we hired him. He had just gone out of Rocky Mountain. And Shears was the officer out at Fremont. And I can tell you one thing I've noticed with the resource officers, I think they get it's a good experience for them because most cops are just dealing with criminals all the time, right? And so Torres, you all know Torres. I'm not going to call him a traitor because we got him back. But he left us for a year, went up to TH Bell. And you know what? He came back a better person from that experience as far as being a resource officer. And so they learn a lot of valuable tools and skills as far as dealing with kids, dealing with parents, being a little more compassionate. I've seen that with everyone that's been a resource officer. But as far as your question goes, the jurisdiction that the school belongs to is the one that puts the officer in.
Counselor Stevens.
Yeah, I was just going to summarize. In fact, I remember getting a call when I first got on the council from a Washington Terrace trying to use me as a back door to say, hey, your guys attend Bonneville. You guys need to pony up because, you know, we're paying for Bonneville and TH Bell, but, and I said, no. and that's when I got schooled that if it's in your jurisdiction, that's why Roy police officers are in Roy schools and so on and so forth. Now, my questions. 500 plus kids. Okay, Bonneville has 1,600. Roy has 1,800 plus.
It's more of probably junior high school, I'd say, equivalent, maybe just under.
Well, Rocky they're busted out at 1,800 to 2,000.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's the only one.
Probably TH Bell's a little more comparable. It's probably got a few hundred more students. South Ogden.
TH Bell is pushing 1,000, but it's Snowcrest up in the valley that has the part-time,
Yeah.
which would be more equivalent to the student body of UMA. And so, what would the for a part-time officer, where would you place them? I mean, how would they be utilized? To me, that's interesting. How do you deploy a part-time officer or a part-time?
I would say, it can be done because it's being done up there. But I would say one of the reasons why Snowcrest has a part-time is just the problems they have are very minimal. You look at the demographics up there, it's a lot different than down
And
here.
the student body is very small.
It's small, but also the problems. I will tell you, again, I don't want to, we have spend our fair share at UMA. I think they're a great school. There are some times where parents, and they've said this themselves, will treat it like it's a boarding school, and it's not. It's designed for kids that are interested in the military, that want good structure, and that's the way they're trying to keep it. But every now and again, you get a kid that's like, oh, we're sending you to military school. And so when you look at the calls and type of calls we would get there versus up there, it's, even though the population is pretty close, and then I think if you were to look at the risk level for that school versus other schools as far as the safety concerns, I don't want anyone to think the school's not safe, because it is a safe school, but I think they're a little bit different. I think things could happen anywhere, though. It could be Snowcrest, the last place you think anything would happen, that might be the first place it happens. It's really unpredictable. But it's something we could look at. I just feel like if they're willing to fund the full-time position, why not?
Well, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I would support it in that you have put resources there for situations that happen and are where the school resource officer would be there to handle those situations anyway.
Yes, that's
And that's how in my mind, how it could be justified, because
yeah.
we're there anyway. We're not getting anything in return. We're handling problems.
We do have a lot. We have several problems there.
Yes.
You guys, I try not to. When we put
all
all
closed door session,
Yeah.
you could be more specific.
well, and
but-
sometimes in the council report too, you'll see
see
things
it.
in there. We try to remove some things because we don't want to paint anyone too badly, I guess you'd say, whether it's a store or school, and we redact a lot of stuff. But, we do have our fair share of issues there. I mean, we've had some scares there where students have threatened to come into, with a bomb or a gun or different things of that nature over the years. We've had multiple sex offenses. I mean, sometimes it just depends on the week. Sometimes we're there every day on not just sitting in the parking lot, on calls, and then we'll have a spell where we don't get a call for a week or two, and then we're back. And so I think, like I says, back to the first slide with this age group being the most vulnerable population, and we kind of have a melting pot of kids from all over there. We have a lot of things that go on there. So it would definitely help with our manpower as far as having someone there. They would free them up from the, we're going to be there no matter what, is what you're saying. And we are there quite a bit.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Merrill.
So the other 25% of the year, they're not going to have the summers off, right?
No, we
just-
would
okay.
utilize them in patrol for coverage, which is great because that's when we have a lot of officers that want to go on vacation. And so I'm sure if we do this, the resource officers are going to want it, because some of them make them like detectives and they handle cases and they stay on their same schedule. No, we're in enabling patrol because that's when our coverage sometimes gets light because everyone wants to go camping and do those things, and it just helps facilitate those vacation requests and those things of that nature. Whereas if they went to detectives, not so much.
And then last thing, it's fair to say, right, that UMA wants this because of the kind of the demand there, right?
Yes.
Is that why they're just so
Oh yeah, they are.
pushing this for years with you, right?
Yes,
And so,
yes. Pretty much every year, if not every year, they're either wanting us to go have a resource officer. They've asked us to just do it part-time before and after school. They've tried to hire us as teachers. They've got creative in a number of different ways to get us there. And I says, listen, how about we just invite us to lunch? We'll come over for lunch. We'll come over, because we want to help meet their demand, but we can't. It just wouldn't work with what they were doing before. And this is kind of the one where, how do we tell them no if they're willing to do whatever other school is doing in the district or the county?
Councilor Stevens.
Yeah, two observations. A couple years ago, I happened to be in my work, and I was in the cafeteria, and one of the gentlemen was spouting off, and without saying who I was or where I was from, he was talking about his son who was a delinquent and had been essentially kicked out of wherever schools he had been at more than once. And so he had sent him to UMA thinking that, like you said, that this would be a military, drop and give me 20 when you step out of line or whatever. And he was ranting about how it wasn't that. And his kid was still causing problems and was probably going to be. And so, I get it. There's a, when you hear military school, you think, this is going to be John Wayne, what he does with his kids, sends them off to there. Anyway, and so there are some inherent challenges there. All right. But my other question is, a resource officer also supports athletic events.
Yes.
And where, I don't know if they have basketball or whatever, is that going to also in the evenings?
Yes. And they do that, and there won't be quite as much as a junior high and high school. There will be some after evening events, and part of that is actually in the contract too. So when they high schools request additional resources for some of these nighttime events. A lot of times they'll request not just the officer, but additional officers.
An ambulance?
Yeah, and they're billed for that under this contract. So like if they had a huge thing where like we need 3 guys here for this event, but they don't have those big events like most high schools do because they just don't do that. But if they did, then
And it would require
Yeah.
being there in the evenings.
yes.
Okay.
But we could, like I says, if it went into beyond their regular duties, then it would be a part of they would be billed for that as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Arnold.
I would just say, so this council can't bind future councils, and the way you have it set up for an evaluation in 3 years with no cost to the city, I mean, I would say go for it and prove it out for 3 years.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because, whoever's here in 3 years, when you come and say, this is what we've been doing, this is the income we've got, this is the budget we've got, no, or yes. So,
That's just, you're right. That's a little bit of a risk, I guess you'd say I take. But I think on the long term for the overall good.
well, and you'll be able to have some data, prove it out,
Yes.
and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Plus,
If it's going to work, I'm going to be
plus
able to come in and say,
you know what your officers need
yes,
during the day. So if you're taking a guy off the street to put him in the school, if you think it's more important to be in the school for the issues that they're having or not having or hopefully avoiding, I mean, I think you having 3 years with no cost, right?
yeah, it would be.
Is-
I mean,
I'm telling you, in 4 years, when you start asking for $275,000 to outfit an officer, you're probably going to have a fight. Just like we had with, this last property tax increase kind of thing. So,
and I understand that, and like I said, I've thought about that, Councilman Arnold, and it's one of those things that, yeah, I would love to just hire an officer today, and I could come in here and probably could ask for one, but I just feel like we need to, and maybe we move it up a little bit sooner. Maybe in a year or two, I'm like, gosh, you know what, this is impacting us too much. It's a great thing. They're on board, and I come back sooner.
you're not helping your case by saying you're going to move it up.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is asking today, and let's say whether you approve or don't approve, I have to balance the benefits package, the salary package, and what we can do with a little bit less just to make sure we're going to have that funding in the future from UMA and from within the city before I can compromise that. Because like you say, it's a lot of money. And let's say in a couple years, UMA backs out and I have this extra guy and, we don't want to ask for another tax increase. Well, I might be one less guy in patrol, but it's better than 6 less because I lost them because I can't fund their raises and their benefits. Mm-hmm. I'd rather do a little more with one less, than be fighting to find good people that I can't recruit and retain. And so that's why I think it's better to wait to see the bigger picture, to make sure they're committed, to make sure that the funding is here. We have a lot of new business coming to town. We have some other apartments coming to town that can also factor into that, where I feel like it's going to help justify that officer. I mean, I really don't want to get rid of this officer, but, let's say, God forbid, I don't bring this to your attention, and, next year we have a school shooting. They're going to say, Chief Warren, why didn't you do your job? You're going to ask me that. Why didn't you do your job and bring this in front of us? They've offered, they've asked, this is what they're willing to do. And if I don't bring it here, then, you guys would be asking me that, why I didn't. Go ahead.
But the thing is, I don't think we would be asking that, because part of what they're saying is, would Riverdale City take on part of this responsibility through their budget?
Sure.
If they were really concerned about that, they would have a resource officer. They would fund that resource officer through, they can have the resource officer run their, when the kids are out running.
Sure.
And stuff like, they can hire somebody to do that,
Yeah.
private security of some sort. They're not asking that. They're saying, if Riverdale will step in and pay half of this officer, which is only, 35% of the whole package, because
year one, because of the 75%
Right.
equation. And then it's 70%.
75% of the package plus, half of that. They're only paying half. They're paying 35% of, so they're coming to the city saying, will you pay 65% of us having a resource officer? Because we have to have them full-time. So, I mean, it's something that we, like I said, if you can prove it out over 3 years, I think it's great.
Yeah,
You know.
that's what the plan is. Like I says, I feel like I get what you're saying. If it was that important to him, well, in my eyes, honestly, it's that important to me that every school, especially junior high and high school, should have a resource officer. Period. I'm glad that Weber School District has been willing to pay more of that contract because it was falling on the cities, and luckily, we didn't have. Well, I don't want to say luckily, but we don't have as Councilor Stevens was saying. They tried to come to us for the Bonneville. Say, well, a lot of your Riverdale kids go up here. Aren't you guys responsible for that? And so we haven't had to do that, and we don't have to do it now. But I feel like it's the right thing to do if they're willing to match the other schools to at least present it and weigh it out over 3 years to make sure it's going to be a good fit for both parties.
Chief, I just want to make a comment. I appreciate you putting all this effort in, trying to find something that will work. You could have walked in here tonight and said, hey, they want a resource officer. I need to hire someone for $230,000 or whatever. But it looks like you've gotten kind of creative and, kind of tried to find something that will work. And we're not going to bind a future council, but
Sure.
you know what I mean? Let's try it. Let's see how it's going and kind of go from there. So I think for your first big proposal to a city council, I think you've done pretty good coming up with something that might, I never know with these guys, but it might have a chance of passing. So
Yeah.
I also think for an action, you run the police department. Where you assign them to prove this out? I mean, I don't know if we need anything from the council. For
No,
you
this
to
is
approve
this is more. My big thing is,
consensus, maybe. I mean,
well, we came in here and we asked for 2 officers. I didn't. Chief Brinkman did. I was a part of that with him as his assistant. And the last thing I want you guys to think is, well, we have these 2 officers that were approved, and they were approved so we could have 2 guys on at all times. And call it lucky or unlucky. Lucky, they're gonna, they want to contribute, and maybe unlucky on the time. As soon as I become chief, here I am, potentially need to add another officer. And it's not for the reasons we said, but it's not something we predicted either. It's not something I planned on. It's just something that happened. And so I feel like I need to keep you guys in the loop because I mean, you guys raised taxes for public safety to fund police officers. And you did that under the notion of what was discussed in here. And I not just to you guys, but to the residents, I want them to understand what we're doing. If they ever have any questions, that I was come in here and I was transparent about what my plans were. And so that's the other reason. I know I could probably say, hey, it's in my budget. I can move it over. But I feel like it's better to keep you guys in the loop. And you might not be on the council in 3 years, but guess what? I might call you and say, hey, I need your support as a resident. Because you're a resident first and a counselor second. And so we'll just see where it goes. I hope it's going to be a good fit for both parties. I think it'd be very beneficial.
Mr. Brooks, what do you think about that? Just a consensus or as far as
You know what? Let me consult. I just sent Stacy a text. My understanding is you guys have to approve an FTE, which we wouldn't have. Is that correct, Stacy? They don't have to?
No, because we already have the FTE. Because
we're not adding an FTE?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we'd be okay then. A consensus would work.
Okay. So is everybody okay with that? Give a thumbs up. Councilor Stevens, okay, that is a unanimous consensus. So
I really appreciate it. I'm a little long-winded sometimes. I really appreciate your good
you've
questions.
noticed that. You've been in like 6 minutes. Oh my God.
One last thing I'm going to point out. You see this lady behind me? As the assistant chief, she's always been over backwards to help me. But as the chief just getting me started, she has been amazing. She takes my phone calls early morning, late nights. I go into her office. It doesn't matter what it is. She's going to play the devil's advocate for me. She's going to give me good advice. And she's going to work her tail off to make sure the city runs smoothly. And as with Steve as well, he's been great. And Cody. But Stacy has been a real help. And so I'm glad she's here. She's going to kick me for saying this, but I think we should recognize her and just say, not just me. I know for a lot of people. But being new in my position, she's been a great asset. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Very good.
He told me I got to give her a Attaboy award here, so maybe tomorrow we'll come up with something. She hands them out all the time. I don't know that she ever gets one, so we'll figure something out.
I'm sure she's excited about that. I can tell. All right, we'll move on to item number 3, discussion concerning funding and adding 1 full-time fire position. Chief Shawley.
Because Stacy screens my calls. All right, so like I said, over the last almost 4 months, I've been tasked with the fire marshal duties since Randy retired. And to say it was challenging was probably an understatement. The International Fire Code and the National Fire Protection Code are extensive. There's approximately 80-something books that address International Fire Code. In the last 4 months, I've purchased about 18 of them, just with what our city provides. So I'll let this come up a little bit, and then we'll kind of dive into it. It's on the desktop. I did. Helping assist out a little bit for me. And go next. So the fire marshal. The fire marshal is more as a fire inspector than it is a fire department person. It's a person that enters every building within the city on an annual basis, including my firefighters. So we make sure that by our ordinance that we've been put in place, that we charge our businesses annually for a fire inspection, which puts us into some sort of responsibility that we have to make sure when we enter those businesses that those businesses are safe and that they're following the fire code. And some businesses are easy, some businesses are extensive. America First takes us 3 days. Most of our car lots, due to their hazards and repair shops and everything else, will take us a full day. And big boxes like Home Depot, Lowe's, a bunch of those businesses will also take us 4 to 6 hours sometimes. So when Randy was here, he was going into our big boxes and what we call our hazards, target hazards, with the crews because of the extensive time period was taken. So if the crews got kicked out on a call, the inspection didn't have to stop. And that's a customer service thing to our businesses, so we don't have to reschedule it and try to get with that manager again to do that, because it is time consuming. So as you look at the fire marshal duties that would be implemented in what I would like to do, and we'll talk about some of the changes according to some of the assessments I've found into or gone into. So prevention, public education, we don't have any of that right now in Riverdale. We don't go into our schools. We don't do any sort of public education with our kids. And that would involve, obviously Riverdale Elementary. It would involve the charter schools, private schools that we currently have. Fire investigations, we have an obligation, which I'll go into by the state code, that we have to provide a fire investigation within our city. That is a requirement through the fire protection plan. Then we have management inspections, documentation. We have lack of documentation right now, which I will get into. There are some businesses that weren't tracked properly that's going to potentially put us in some harm's way. CERT management, enforcement of code, plan review, sprinkler review, fire inspection review, site plans, final business licensing, underground inspections. If you guys looked at my report, Shake Shack, for example, I think I went into Shake Shack 8 to 9 times. Just through the construction phase of doing this, and we're still not done. As Mr. Brooks pointed out, we still have a hood system to go in, and hopefully they can do that puff test and get through that. And then CO2. CO2 is a new thing, so that's another fire system because it's an asphyxiant that the businesses now have to put in, and it's another inspection that both will be done annually and initially when the business is brought in. So we can move on to the next one. Fire Department Marshal Standards, International Fire Code, National Fire Protection Association. These are all put in place. So we have minimum standards that we have to meet within our communities to protect our citizens and our firefighters. Every system that we have in our buildings obviously protect our citizens to exit, and it protects our firefighters to enter. And we are making a lot of assumptions tactically that when we enter these buildings, these systems are in place, they're functioning. One of the things that I found recently in one of our strip malls is we have what we call fire department's connection, a standpipe connection that we would hook into. We have no idea where that connection goes. And no one can tell me. And so it is sitting on a building right now that my guys would look at and attach to the fire truck and start pumping it, and we currently don't know where it goes. So that is a problem. So there's other 2 FDCs on that building that would also be flowed and we could connect to. But I don't know if you guys know where the old Bed Bath & Beyond is right next. That used to be a movie theater, I found out. Me and Woody's done a lot of research over
Yeah, the
last
Man
time.
movie theater.
The Man movie theater. So that building has a 2.5 FDC on it, and it looks like somewhere along the line that probably may have been capped, and it's not been informed. And then that whole strip mall's improving, and here comes Chuck E. Cheese. So that'll be fun. They're going to start doing that here pretty soon. Maybe I shouldn't have divulged that.
I was like,
Sorry. Learned a lot about incoming businesses this last little bit. So these 2 fire standards, so when you look at International Fire Code, that book alone is that. It is extensive. There's a lot to it. And then it refers you also to the International Fire, or the National Fire Code, or National Fire Association Code, the NFPA. And then we have to determine which code holds the highest restriction. And then we hold that to that restriction. Or we work with WC3, who does our third-party evaluation of our systems, and then between us and which is the area having jurisdiction, can determine what we're going to require businesses to do. And it's quite a little process going through that, and working with Woody and now Steve May through a lot of these things. I've realized the process. Next. Title III, Chapter 7 in the Utah Prevention and Safety Act. These are the codes that we would have to follow according to legislation. And each one of these are defined what our definition is of having an area, having jurisdiction, and what my responsibilities are as a fire chief or the fire marshal within this jurisdiction. Contracting something out would still not take the liability off of me. I would still be the area having jurisdiction to make ultimate decisions. So even if we went to a contract out situation and we didn't provide that, it would still fall back onto myself as the fire chief. That company would still have to, or whoever that was, would have to work with me to through enforcement. So all these lay out enforcement standards, administration authority, inspection of buildings, how we would have to investigate it by local, and how do we initiate the state fire marshal into our investigations, and then the violations through misdemeanors that we'd have to have our city attorney then move forward if we were going to, after a 3rd inspection, start looking at moving into that realm, which fire prevention is fire prevention. It's education. We don't want to start getting into the fines. We don't want to start doing some of that enforcement. We don't have to. What I'm really finding out that's interesting is our businesses don't know what they need to do in a lot of cases. It's an educational platform. We walk in and they're like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know I had to have a hood system inspected every 6 months. What do you mean my extinguishing systems need to be inspected annually? Or my riser has to be a 5-year inspection. They really just didn't understand a lot of these things, which I think has compounded the problem of us going in ongoing 2nd and 3rd inspections. So next. So this will be kind of a chart showing what our inspections have done since 19. So if you look at 19, we've steadily increased from 423 inspections. These are total. And then last year we did 497 inspections. And that does not include the inspections for like fireworks or other things, or the time periods that we went in, like the Shake Shacks, and we went in 8, 9, 10 times, or Randy went into there multiple times. That's not including any of that. When we go into a new business, they get one charge for initial inspection, and that's their business licensing, which me and Michelle's talked a lot about, the business licensing issue that's coming up in this situation as well. And go next. And then I broke it down a little bit further so you can see what our initial inspections were in 19 and how it's progressed to 23. The fluctuation in the initial inspections, because what we're finding too is we have a lot of businesses move out. We don't know they've moved out. Michelle doesn't know they've moved out because they don't tell us. The first time we know that they've moved out is my fire guys go to do an inspection and they're not there anymore. So then we have to communicate that and figure out, but that doesn't stop us from the inspection. We still have to inspect the building and make sure the building is still safe for the buildings attached to it. So the inspection doesn't stop. It's just the occupancies in which we're reporting the inspection. And so you can see on that one we have re-inspections, fireworks, 149. As you can see, that's steadily gone up because we are still growing. You guys, we still have businesses coming in. If you just look at America First, what's coming, you got Tesla coming, you got all these things that are public knowledge. Those are big developments. All of our apartment complexes will be sprinkled. They will all have fire suppression systems in them. Those will be inspected annually, just like Green Hill. Construction, those are the construction ones, on-site construction inspections. Because we do undergrounds, we make sure that the system is attached properly into the risers and into the sprinkling systems before they bury it. And then business licensing. The business licensing, you can see 2012. Once again, that is not including all the other site visits that we have to do. That is their final business license inspection for occupancy. So here's the issues that have been identified. So when I looked at this, one of the things I used to kind of evaluate a risk is community risk findings and risk assessment. What is the risk to our community? What's the impact to our community? What's the impact to Riverdale City? $7.6 million in tax revenue. We were worried RC Willie's a $500,000 loss. I lose Home Depot. That's a big loss. We almost lost Aaron's twice. We had fires in Aaron's. We've had fires in McDonald's, in Walmart. Walmart is the worst system in the world. It's one of my examples. It still does not have a fire inspection done. So that is something that's problematic. We've had fires in Poco Loco. We've had fires in hood systems. We've had fires. This isn't something that's new. We've had fires in these areas. Poco Loco is interesting because they had a fire in their hood, didn't train their employees properly to pull the hood system. My guys arrived and pulled the hood and had to pull the hose line in. Training again, public education into our businesses. That would have eliminated that problem and some of the damage that occurred. So when you look at this, we have businesses, licenses, we have businesses without fire inspections completed. We have fees not being charged for additional inspections. We need to have an educational campaign into our businesses. No one's inspecting the hood systems every 6 months. It's one of the main failure points we're seeing in our restaurants when we go in. Complexity of the fire code. Management of our city lift system. When Randy left, we had 186 inspections in there that were showing delinquencies. Businesses, 186 businesses in there. Went through, took the initiative, sent a letter out. Probably, I'm actually surprised the mayor didn't hear, because we had businesses in uproar. We had about 50% of our businesses out of that 186 that were compliant, that were simply not tracked appropriately. The other ones we found, like Aaron's, didn't have their 5-year sprinkling system done. And so we did have about 50% of those businesses were still not compliant in that, and we're still working on compliancy. And we haven't adopted the current code amendments. And I don't think we've done that for a few years after I've talked to Randy, and me and Michelle went through and tried to find the adoptions of the code amendments that the state, and every year the state adopts new code amendments. And then they sometimes will adopt the current International Fire Code, which sometimes changes every 2 to 3 years. And we're in 2022, and I think the last time we adopted was 2018. So we're a little bit behind in that area. We have 33 businesses right now who went into third inspections that are not completed. And that's significant. We're moving in. So the problem with this is, and let's not doom and gloom this. We're not going to burn Riverdale City down. We're just not going to do that. There's enough holes in this, though, that I'm concerned that we have systems that may or may not function properly or adequately to what they're designed to do. So 33 businesses, they went into a third inspection. Third inspection wasn't done. So third inspection means they've had code violations for 3 times now. And we have some of those businesses who have been constant offenders. And those businesses would be implemented to have a 6-month inspection. A random, we can walk into any business that we want to at any time and inspect them. We know who these 33 are. There's no doubt about it. My guys can tell you exactly who these 33 are. Because they're constant offenders. I want my guys in the businesses. So I want my guys doing the initial inspection, hands down. I want them walking in, doing pre-plan, seeing their hazards of what they're going into. What I don't want them doing anymore is enforcement. They shouldn't be enforcing as fire inspectors. They're not enforcement entities. That should fall myself or a fire marshal. And that really comes back to, I think, for us to do the right thing. Just need somebody to do this. Just need somebody to go in and take the time with our businesses that we need to. Next, we can move on. So I wouldn't bring a problem without a solution. This is our current inspection fee schedule. We doubled it, and then we doubled it, and then we doubled it. So our initial inspections are 60, 120, 240. And then we would refer to Class B misdemeanors through your city attorney. What I'm proposing is moving forward is all my initial inspections are done by my firefighters, which is last year approximately 100 or 312 inspections. They would walk into every business. I want to start that in November. Start in November because business licensing goes out in February. Last year we were still doing inspections in July. Business licensing had already gone out. I want all the initial inspections done before business licensing goes out. Then I want to know who our ongoing inspections need to be done on. We can still assign a business license because we've identified those people and we know the violations that they're working on. And then we can give them 14 and 7-day leniency and time periods to work on these violations and get them resolved. Customer service back to our businesses. I don't want to, we're going to submit the initial inspection fees because it's part of our ordinances. I don't want to get into Class B misdemeanors and finding our businesses. Our businesses are our lifeblood here. This is a commercial community. Next. So, my understanding is there's a full-time position still in Mike Aga's budget. I'll let Steve address that if he'd like. Based on our 2023 inspections, we would have brought in $41,880 in inspection fees, doing what we just did last year. And I think there's a little bit here or there that could even be more than that because of fireworks and different things coming in and different inspections that we would have. So there is a revenue stream there, or stream, but it is also our businesses paying for that service. Now, another thing that may not be accounted for in this is we just did an ISO rating for the city. We just completed the paperwork, and part of this ISO rating is for International Organization of Standardization. It is their insurance costs. The insurance companies get our ISO rating, and that bases their insurance that they'll pay on their structures depending on what the fire protection is in their area. And if that ISO, and one of the big components of this, and Mike got hit with the building inspector one on this one too, the big component of this one is what fire protection, what public safety, what fire prevention are you doing, and what fire marshaling are you doing in your communities, and the inspections and you're doing it, and the process in which we do it, and are we following international fire code. And all of that data is sent back into them. So we do that every 5 years. We just did it last year, so we'll see where I haven't seen our rating yet. Last time we were a 4, I believe. A lot of components go into that, but that is our business's insurance. So that is what I have.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief, for that. Just to bring the council up to speed just a little bit, this is something we have been working on in the city for several months, trying to figure something out. Mr. Brooks, do you want to take a second and tell kind of where you're at or what some options are? Or do you guys have any questions right up front? Do you want to hear?
Just a second, yes. Somebody retired who was the marshal. Was that a full-time or part-time position?
Full-time.
And is that,
It was split.
He did code enforcement too.
yeah, right. So half, so do you have an open part-time or full-time position right now? Okay.
He retired and they hired a full-time code enforcement.
No, he's not full-time either.
Full-time?
No.
It's part-time.
It was one full-time position. We split it in half. He was actually doing 3 jobs. Do you want me to go?
Yeah. Are you guys ready?
Some
for
of
Mr.
this
Brooks
just to give you
kinda
some
give us a
background. He
little
was
bit?
actually doing 3 jobs. One of those was the emergency management, one of them was the inspections, and then the other one was code enforcement. We knew we were going to have to split that up. Part of the problem is we didn't even know when Randy was going to go, to be honest with you. It would look like it was and then wasn't, and so this dragged on for quite a while. We had done some preliminary things, but the more we looked at this and we discovered, and you know, I know this kind of dumps something on Jared here, but when he was hired, the emergency operations is part of his job description. I don't know why Roger took that away. I have no idea. And so, and in reality, I mean, there's times when that's quite busy, and yeah. there's times when it's not. There's a lot of meetings associated with that. That one's kind of a nightmare. But once you get your operation plan in place, it's not as bad other than those meetings. And I'm not saying that it's not busy, because it's busy, but I don't know that a lot of Randy's time went to that, is basically what I'm saying. And so at that point, I told Jared, I said, it's in your job description, you should be doing it. You need to take that one back. So that one's been handed off. Code enforcement's been split off, and he is a part-time. That one was a situation where we were looking at moving these around anyway, because we needed to get them into places that were a little bit better. And in meeting with the mayor, we felt that code enforcement was more appropriate to go under police. And so we approached them. I approached them numerous times, and those meetings never went really well. They weren't too happy about that. But ultimately, we sat down, and the chief at that time looked at us and said, if you're going to tell me I got to take this, I'll take it. And so we said, we're telling you, you got to take it. So they took that. I have not heard anything about that since then. Nothing. They've just completely run with it, done a phenomenal job. And the guy they hired, and this has been the problem we've had with all these, is we don't know what we're going to get. We didn't know what we were going to get into any of these because they're part-time positions. We didn't know exactly what we were looking at. The guy they picked up's been phenomenal. I mean, surprisingly good. And I think Casey could confirm that. Retired firefighter, ironically. But he's just been exceptional. We've been really happy with him. But you just don't know when you go into these things. And so a lot of the things that you have to prepare for, we have such a range when we look at salary and things like that, because a guy like this, we probably had to pay a little bit more to get him here, but it was worth it. And it still fit within that halftime parameter. We're fine on that kind of stuff. But it wasn't like it was some starting halftime salary, for just basic minimums kind of stuff. But so that's just to give you a little bit of background about those. So we're sitting there with just a part-time FTE is what we have, full-time equivalent, for this position. And I've maintained this from the start, but I want to just go on record and say a couple things. And there's a couple things I'd like to have the chief clarify maybe at the end here. But I just want to state right coming out of the gate here that I am not anti-police or fire. I'm just not. I never have been, and I never will be. But this puts me in a really tough position, because I would love to give them everything I could, but it's not realistic. And I represent more than just one department. It's not just fire. It's just not police. Just for example, and this is the kind of stuff that comes up all the time. Just recently, my public defenders have pulled out of a contract. And this was one of the reasons why we were arguing we need a little bit of money in there, because we don't know what's going to come up. We don't know what these are going to cost us and all this kind of stuff. So my public defender contract cost me about, I wrote some numbers down, I can't remember what it was, about $12,000 right now is what I pay for that. I can't go without a public defender. Just can't. By law, I have to have one. They've tripled that. I'm going to have to pay close to $40,000 right now for a new public defender. And so there's a gap right there, of roughly 20-something thousand, or close to 20,000. And it's like, where do I come up with this kind of money? So what I'm saying is it's not just one department that I have to look at. So when I, question one of these positions, it's not because I'm picking on anybody or that I don't support police or fire. It's because I have a whole city to run, and these things are expensive. And, we're still looking at that. I'm not saying I'm going to pay $40,000 for that, for public defender work, but I just want you to understand that, I went to lunch just today with both the city administrators from the Terrace and South Ogden, and we were just talking about things that were going on in the city, and I said I had a meeting tonight, and I had public safety on there, both police and fire. And they just looked at me and said, oh, good luck with that one, because it's like a no-win situation for me, And I think it is for you guys. It puts you in a tough spot, because when we talk about public safety, everybody wants to keep people safe. We want to keep our own people safe. We want to keep the public safe. We want to do those kind of things. But they're not cheap either. And so we're trying to be careful with how we do these things. And it's not just them, but every department head that I've met with since I took over this, I'm asking them, I'm saying, think outside of the box. Come up with something creative that's not going to kill us. We got to do something different. We are not your normal city. We've talked about that a zillion times. Riverdale is not a normal city. We are not a Syracuse. We're not a Layton. We're not an Ogden. None of that. We're Riverdale. And we are restricted in what we can do and what we can't do. We don't have unlimited funds. You know that. And we had to do that tax increase just a year ago, and we all saw how painful that is. We may have to do another one realistically as we get closer to 2030. None of us want to do that. And so when I scrutinize one of these positions, there's a reason why I do it. Because I don't want to go through that either. That was a pain in the butt for us, And I certainly know you guys don't want to. But we don't have much choice. If we don't have money, you're going to have to do a tax increase. We've done everything we can possibly do to implement fees and everything we can come up with but that. And so if we keep spending and spending and spending, you're going to have to do tax increases. This is the only way we can pay for these things. So when I sat down and I asked, come up with something, and this is what I've appreciated with Casey when he came to me. I mean, you should have seen Casey was almost shaking when he came into my office to talk to me about this initially, because he knew what my reaction was going to be. But this is one of those things when I look at this and say, it's creative, it's different, and if it saves us money, then we've got to look at it. And so that's why we set this up, to bring it in so you guys could look at it and see what we're doing. And it's no different in this position. I understand we may have to go with a full-time guy, but I don't have that approved. I don't have the FTE, and I don't have the money right now. I mean, can we make it work? We can always make lots of things work by shifting funds around and stuff like that. But is it the right thing to do? When we looked at Randy, I mean, and we have to be careful with what we say about that, because I understand there may have been some things that didn't get completed, but there's a zillion reasons why that can happen. And some of us are in this building every day. We saw what was going on, and we can't blame people. And I got to be careful on that one. We can't blame people why things weren't getting done, because there's a lot of things that read into that. Now, am I happy about it? No. I mean, some of these things the chief mentioned here, I'm kind of scratching my head. I'd never even heard half this stuff. So I'm kind of wondering how this even happened or could have happened. But this is a complicated thing. There's a number of options and things that we can look at, and we just haven't even looked at it. And that's where I have the problem with it. If we end up having to go full-time, then we have to go full-time. But I don't know that we will. I think we could at least try some other options first, and then we can go from there. Mike, hand these around.
So just a second, Mr. Brooks. Chief, I'm going to give you plenty of time to talk. So
you're fine.
Don't worry about that. Do you want to have a seat while he gives us these options? Or
I have a seat all day.
Okay.
I just did that up today.
We're going to
so
give
you haven't
Mr.
seen
Brooks
that.
a chance to go through and explain his thoughts to the council. We're going to give you plenty of time to
Absolutely.
to explain your thoughts on these. I just want everybody to know they're going to have plenty of time.
So, and I don't want you to get bogged down in it. Basically, what it comes down to is we've internally, when I meet with Stacy and Cody and we look at what options we have available, we have a half-time position, we have a certain amount of money. How do we make this work? So as I reached out, we've had two different options that we explored early on initially that looked like both of those were going to work, and for varying reasons, they didn't. But it hasn't changed the goal and the outline. And so just on that first page, I've kind of listed what our stuff looks like. So the bare minimum requirements are listed there as far as education and experience. This is what's listed in our paperwork right now. Now, I'm not going to say, because I'm not going to argue with Chief Shawley, because I don't know exactly what's required, but this is what our paperwork requires now. When we've reached out to a couple of the other individuals, what they had told me is you got to have your Inspector 1 and your Inspector 2. There's no question about that. And the special qualifications, what we require as part of this job position is that within 1 year, they get their fire inspector, and within 2 years, they get their fire plans examiner. So we have not traditionally required somebody to come in with this experience. All of our firefighters have the Inspector 1 right now, I believe. Chief Shelley could confirm that, but I think they do, and that's why they go out and they do those inspections. And in fact, the big numbers that you saw in his chart, the 497, those are the inspections that the crews do. Is that correct? That's not what Randy did. He only did the follow-ups, right?
Randy was doing the thirds, the 49. The crews were doing over
Right.
almost 500 of them.
Right. So the big number on that chart was not what Randy does. Or Randy did. I should be careful with that. And the other thing I would mention on there, in my 19 years that I've been here, I have never had a fire case come to me. Now, I'm a little bit concerned that maybe we should have, according to what we just heard there. But it never came to us. We've never had a complaint. We've never had anything filed. Are you aware of anything, Mike? You were his supervisor.
No.
So we've never, I don't ever remember filing a court case. I don't think we've ever gotten that far that it's been that bad. So to say that happens a lot is probably not true, just in all fairness.
Talking Class B, Mr.
Yeah, any of them. Randy, what would happen is Randy would come to me occasionally if he was having problems with somebody, say it's a third inspection, and he's not getting some compliance. I think I might have written a letter or two in that time threatening him that we would be filing something, but usually Randy just handled it and got worked out, and they ended up complying. We never had to take anybody in court that I recall.
Did you have something to say, Chief?
I'd have to look back at my emails, but Randy did a lot of letters last year and he's done letters every year of Class B misdemeanor stuff.
Just ask a question. Is this appropriate for the city council meeting?
All right.
I mean, I
Right.
think you guys are fighting
I don't,
and we're not the judge. I mean, you guys
Right.
need to sit down and work this out.
I agree.
Bring something to the city council and say, this is what we've worked out. We want your approval. But it's almost like, I feel that, Chief Shawley's saying, hey, this is what I'm asking for, and you're saying this is why we're not going to give it, or we can't give it to him. And it's like, you guys need to sit down and figure this out, because it shouldn't be in city council meeting that we're doing this.
Go ahead.
So we had that meeting last Wednesday, and we could not come to an agreement. So Chief Shawley asked if he could come before you guys and take it to you directly, his case.
I mean,
So we kind of agreed. We kind of were like,
I
this
took
is
the same
not
approach
gonna be
Casey
good.
took.
So it's a no? I mean, you guys are saying no, and he was saying, I want this, and you guys are saying, no, you can't do it? Or?
I just took the same approach Chief Warren took, is that there's certain issues that may come up that you guys are I'm not a resident of Riverdale, and Steve's not a resident of Riverdale. You guys are the elected officials that make the decisions, and this is an FTE position that would have to be approved. And so my job as the fire chief is basically to inform you that I feel there's a threat, the level of threat, and what threat level you're willing to assume. And I agree with Steve. It's not anybody's done anything wrong, and I'm not bad-mouthing anybody whatsoever. There's circumstances in there that are valid of why some of this may or may not have got done. And right up to the end where Randy retired, there's valid concerns and things that happened. So the stalemate is I feel like the information may not have got to this point that may need it to get to this point for a decision to be made. And that's where I look at a fire chief's position, a police chief's position, that if it's okay if we don't agree, and sometimes we can agree to disagree, but it's my job. I took an oath, and if I feel there's a threat to your city, I should have to tell you that threat level to your city. And then once I say that, then you're assuming that liability and what threat level you're willing to assume. Are you okay with part-time fire marshal and doing that and continuing down a certain pathway because we can't do certain things part-time? Or do you want to increase that service level to our businesses and get somebody in there more frequently doing some of this and the follow-ups and making sure that we're providing that to our businesses? And that's it. I don't want to, this is an argument for me. This isn't me arguing or doing anything right now. I just feel that's why I'm here, is that whole.
I expressed my concern in the meeting earlier this week because I don't think this is a legislative function, which is your function. I think this is strictly administrative, which should be handled under the mayor and myself. I could hire somebody tomorrow. I have 3 options listed in here that would fulfill what we asked for as far as a part-time goes. I still think we're going to get the same service, if not better, under any one of those 3. Well, potentially, one of those is just to open it up and see what we get, and we don't know what we'll get. There are 2 other options on there that South Ogden does, and another option that actually originated from Chief Shawley using one of our current employees that I think are win-wins for everybody, but we haven't had a chance to look at them. And I still think that we could pull that off, but that's where we're at.
Does the council want to hear those 2 options? Or would you rather just bring it as a proposal to do it and not? I feel like you guys maybe would want to hear the whole thing rather than us just bringing something and saying, hey, here's what we proposed. You thumbs up or thumbs down it.
Can I just ask, what timeline are we looking at? Now, you presented a timeline based on when the letters go out for business licenses, but really, what is the timeline?
As far as to get somebody hired?
Yeah, well, because if you want it full-time, I don't see that until we start the budget process.
In reality, it's just like the code enforcement officer. Just through this process and looking at these things, just today, we found out that we undershot that thing. So we're going to have to tweak that a little bit. We're still fine, but you can't predict a lot of these things. We don't know what these are going to cost. And that was what my hope was, is let's start this off as a part-time and see. It may come to the point where we have to go full-time, which would be exactly that. We would be coming back in budget time to ask for more money. But we don't know. We don't know.
I mean, one of the things that came up that I would like is maybe every even year, which would be next summer, we visit a truth in lending.
Taxation.
Truth in taxation, sorry. And so that would be next year, and be incorporated into the budget and so on. But, yeah, I'd like to hear the options, but in my mind, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, what timeline are we looking at, and where's our budget at? That's where Cody would be.
As far as the timeline goes, it just depends on who you got in here. If it was a qualified guy who had these types of certifications, you could start tomorrow, really.
As part-time or
Either as a part-time or a full-time. If we have to train somebody, which is realistically what we would have to do on options one and two, and that depends, because there. I don't know if you want to hear all this. You can get these people their certifications in different ways. One of them is online. One of them's through classes. There's actually an organization in Colorado that we can send people there, and they guarantee you that you will pass that the fire inspection 2 in a week. It's very intensive. It's a all-out blitz-on kind of thing, and if you don't pass, then they will run you through the course again and make sure you pass. So in reality, you could say, if we took a current firefighter who already had his one, we could get him, if he could go to this course, we could have him done in a week, and then he's just got to pass his test, however long that would take. So that's probably oversimplification, but it could be that quick if we moved on it. Otherwise, we have the other certifications, and they're all going to take time. Some of them more than others, just like our qualifications for the job show that some of those we give more time than others. The Fire Inspector 2 is probably the most crucial one that we need right now. A lot of this stuff, and this is where, Randy, to his credit, he did a lot. But there's some things, like any of our bigger jobs, were farmed out. And we still do that. And we still would, unlike the America First and probably Tesla and all them. Those go out to a private corporation that reviews all that stuff. Then that's when our guy will step in. But that's the bulk of that is done. Now they have to follow through and go in there and inspect it, visually inspect it, make sure they've done everything. And a lot of those are going to be, your sprinkling system and things like that. And they've got to make sure they followed the plan. But the plan itself is farmed out. And so... And we can continue to do that. I mean, preferably, I would like to do that in-house, but that's going to take some time and some experience for somebody to get to that point where we're that comfortable. Randy never did on a lot of those. And that was by his choice, but we left it up to him. But I think he had the certifications to do it. But some of those were huge, and they do take time. But we have money that's budgeted for that as well. So the short answer, you could realistically get somebody with the one certification we need within a week, but it's probably going to be a little bit longer than that, but it just depends on how much they want to work and get it done.
Counselor Hanson?
It's like you knew I was going to raise my hand. I must have been pulling faces.
Yeah.
I have to agree with what Counselor Arnold said during Chief Warren's. It's great. We want to have these presentations. We want to know what's going on in the city and the justification for when people come and ask us why we raise taxes and an officer's now over at the school, or why now are we making these changes with the fire marshal. I think the information is super helpful, and really it's helpful to me to see all of this. But I do have an issue that this is an administrative, not a legislative decision. And for me, it's a little disheartening to see that we still have this disconnect between the three of you and not being able to come up with a solution that will work for the city and will work for the department, and that we have to get pulled into a squabble, and for no lack of a better word. I think all three of you are very capable.
I agree.
These are all four great options. They all four are.
I didn't see these options till right now.
Yeah, and so
I could tell that. That's actually why I
yeah.
said something.
And now we have them, which I think it's really interesting and to see, and makes me feel good that there's 4 options, that you've done some work on that to find these different solutions. But as a council, I think I want the presentations. I don't want you guys to stop that. But we trust you. We trust you with the budget. We trust you with your jobs, and that's why you're here. And so I'm a little frustrated that we're getting close to 8, and we're dealing with an administrative issue that you guys should be able to resolve on your own.
Don't disagree at all.
Sorry.
Me neither.
That's my feelings.
Councilor Arnold?
Anybody else? I've been trying to figure out where my emotions are in this one. And I think I figured it out, but I'm heartbroken that when we did the property tax increase and we did the franchise fee increase, and I mean we've increased the world with, especially with COVID and everything, we've increased everything, but the property tax was a bill of goods. And you're absolutely right on your comment that you made that, you know, we couldn't earmark it for public safety. That's why I voted no on the property tax, but you 4 voted yes, and honestly, you should be furious because the fire marshal is in there. That was something they said. Look, two police officers, 2 fire officers, or 2 firemen, a emergency resource officer, and a fire marshal, and that's with Randy working here, and it's like, why are we coming in with this bill of goods to say, you know what, we're going to raise 97% on our property tax? It passes, and we don't get that stuff. Even if it's just, you know what, your word. You know what, you can't earmark it. You know, we can't earmark it. So I'm like, well, if we can't earmark it, I'm not going to support it. But it passed. And it's like, the reason it passed, and I'm assuming I'm saying that each one of you saw the presentation for the 2 police officers, 2 firemen, the fire marshal. Yes, we're raising the property tax to fund that. And now to have Chief Shelley come in here and say, hey, we're looking for a fire marshal, it's like, it's already been adjudicated. You know, we can't earmark it, but you sold us a bill of goods. 4-1 said yes. Property taxes go up. We don't even have that money yet. It's November, right? When the property tax funding, I mean, we probably won't even get it until next February. But it's like, so I'm brokenhearted that he's even here with something that's already done. It was done. 4-1, done. Oh, okay, well, we can't earmark it, so we're not going to honor our word. At what point do we honor our word and say, you know what, we already talked about a fire marshal. Let's get it in here. Let's figure out how to get it done. You know, it's like, it's heartbreaking to sit here, and granted, you know, January 1st, I might not be on the council, and some people might wish for that. But the thing is, you know, when I say something, I hope my word counts. And I think that we did that. I mean, 4-1, but it was still pass. I don't complain. If I lose, you know, I can say no as loud as I want, but I lost, right? I mean, you taught me that years and years ago. But the thing is, we can't earmark it, but we did have a bill of goods that was sold. And for Chief Shelley to be standing here asking for this person when we said yes to that, it's just heartbreaking for you know, our word as a council, as a city, as this is what we sold the bill of goods for. And you know, he's in here saying, hey, yeah, I mean, I hope you got your 2 firefighters. Okay, I mean, we're going somewhere else with the money, you know. I mean, by doing it this way. So ran over. Sorry.
So just so I can kind of go through what I remember from the tax increase. I remember we were going to do 2 police officers, 2 firefighters, and then there was some discussion about we're going to have to do something about code enforcement and the fire marshal. Like, it was kind of like the last, if there's anything left, is what I remember.
The slide that we had up here had 2 police, 2 fire, emergency preparedness person, and they talked about the code enforcement because they were saying with Randy to split it, and the fire marshal.
Yeah.
Because Chief Shelley's been,
Yeah.
I'm going to say chirp, but chirping about the fire marshal for a long time. I mean, everybody knows that, so.
So I know the police officers cost more than we planned. I think the firefighters might have cost a little more than we planned. I'm not sure on that one. But I know that last little part was kind of, if it was available, then we would use it for those things. And we do still have enough available for a part-time fire marshal. It's there. Cody was asked, right?
Yes, it's
We've
there.
got
Yep.
And we've got some possible solutions to do that, to step right in and do it right now. But like I said, we had a meeting and we just could not come to an agreement about it. And so Chief Yawley asked if he could come before the council and tell his side of the story.
But then we have this. If he hasn't seen this, it should have been brought up in the meeting. And I just think I understand you want to come here, but that's probably out of frustration that it wasn't given. But it's like, if you guys, like Annie said, or you said, administrative versus legislative, and it's like,
Well, and
we shouldn't be deciding this way.
I agree.
I brought another option in that we had Weaver Fire District come in and do our fire marshal work, and they turned it down. So that's another one that was brought in as part of one of these options that we weren't able to be successful on. Because that was the ability that we had now, a fire marshal group of people and inspectors that would be contracted, that I would still have area having jurisdiction. They don't want it.
Well, and I for one want it done. When you told me that there was a fire in the McDonald's in Walmart, I was there. I was in Walmart.
Video.
I didn't know there was a fire there.
It's a great video.
I mean, that's my home. They have better Coke. Because their mix is done better.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll echo what Alan said. I'm so confused by it. What I thought was all approved and included in the tax increase isn't. I guess I got a fundamental question. We've been missing a fire marshal for a number of months. I don't know what your plan is, but is there a plan? I
It's
don't
just
know.
on his shoulders.
And that's not okay,
Not
because
at all.
I think he's not a trained fire marshal. He's winging it. That's not okay. That's what he's in here reporting is, I'm missing a lot of things. Heads up. I think that's his job as fire chief. It becomes confusing when he's speaking in both positions tonight, but he's basically, as fire chief, saying, hey, things are getting missed. And so we got to get this solved. If there's money to hire a part-time fire marshal, get him hired. Do you have concerns about a part-time fire marshal? Speak truthfully.
That was my question as well, so. it connects.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't have concerns.
Okay.
Because that's been on the table, and I just don't feel like we have because this option of South Ogden, I don't know why they're bringing this forward, because South Ogden only inspects their target hazards. We see their inspections come up on the board. Every time they go out and do a business inspection, they actually make a run call for it. And my guys work at South Ogden. That's why I went and asked them. They have given their captains more money to do it. And one of their captains was a previous fire chief who's a fire investigator, fire marshal certified. So that's why he's there doing that. But they also have 2 fire stations. And they have more staffing and crews. And they do run less calls out of their Station 81 station than we run out of ours. So to keep dumping the fire inspections more and more on my captains who are already doing it, here's what we do. We do fire inspections starting in November. We'll do fire inspections until February, March. Come March, we'll do hydrants, and we'll start certifying and flowing all the hydrants within Riverdale City. Over the summer, we'll start doing our mandatory training that we have to do. Then we roll into July with Old Glory Days, and then we're going to roll into August, and we're going to start plowing here pretty soon. We're going to start plowing city buildings. We're going to raise lowering flags. The fire department has support and continues to support and will support every other department in the city, and we have done that. But we cannot keep just putting more and more and more on my captains, thinking that they're no. If you look at a captain and a sergeant, that's the same equal light running field here. Captains supervise a fire crew. They're expected to be with their fire crew. Their crew goes in a structure fire, they're with them to protect them. They're not fire marshals. They're simply not. And the whole thing that the fire department can just do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. Is the struggle that I have. And just like me, there's another duty, there's another duty, there's another duty. It's a breaking point.
As I recall, part of the tax increase included a discussion of dumping duties on everybody, on staff, willy-nilly, because we the perception was we would never raise taxes, and so that was a discussion that it ended with, those days are over, hopefully. Here's a bunch of tax money. Let us know if you need any more. But the idea of just dumping things on people and digging ourselves a bigger hole was behind us, I thought.
I am a communicator. You guys know I'm a communicator. I've been communicating since May. I've never seen this, Steve. Never have I seen this. I'm sorry, but I've
We
never
need
seen
to,
this.
I mean, like, if fire inspections are more important than the flag going up. You know, I mean, I want to see the flags going up and all that kind of stuff for sure, but we need to get the fire inspections. I mean, that's health, safety, and welfare kind of stuff. The flags are pretty cool, you know, that kind of stuff. But we got to figure out how to do, public safety has got to be, it's like Casey was saying, you know, we have a school shooting. They're going to start saying, why didn't you put the resource officer in there or something like that, you know, and we have a fire, somebody actually gets hurt. They're going to say, why were the fire department raising the flag at that time or something like that. We've got to figure this thing out.
Commercial structure fires kill 8 times as many firefighters as residential when we have it happen. That's just like fact.
So
Yeah, you need to sharpen your pencil.
I'll just tell you right now, okay? Mr. Brooks said, I don't think you should allow Chief Shawley to come in and present to the council. I don't think it's appropriate. It's just not normal. And we had a meeting, and after hearing both sides, I said, look, Chief Shawley, you can come and present to the council. You obviously have something you want to tell them, and you can come and present to them. So that's how we ended up in kind of this weird situation. Now, I also agree with you that it is, and Mr. Brooks, that it's an administrative function. And so Mr. Brooks and I are going to make a decision, and we're going to move forward with that decision, and the problem will be solved as far as we're concerned. Now, if you guys have other concerns, somebody can reach out. You can follow up on it. I think we already have a solution. I'm already leaning towards a solution that I'm very comfortable with, and so we'll just go ahead with that. And then if you guys aren't happy with it, then I guess somehow it'll get back to you, and we can look at doing something different. And if it entails more money, then that'll be up to you guys.
Before you take adverse action against the fire department, I think the existence of a competent fire department is a council question. Just like if you were doing this at the expense of the police department, which I don't perceive, then we would be worried about destroying a competent police department. I know competent everything is not in the budget, but maybe it is. Maybe tell us how much we need to raise taxes before you decimate something. And so I do have a concern if that's where we're going.
And just for the record, I'm not going to take action against the fire department or decimate the fire department. Boy,
But I also think,
I think there's a very workable solution right in front of us.
I think
And so-
retention too, you know, I mean, we're talking about that because, I mean, Chief Shelley doesn't look like he's very happy, you know, and he's at retirement, eligibility.
Risk.
I mean,
risk
if
of
you wanted to retire tonight, you could, right? I mean, but the thing is, you know, I lived through Chief Elam, and I can't remember the other chief's name. Bodley.
Oh, Bodley.
Yeah, Bodley. I mean, he wasn't here very long, but I did live through Chief Elam. I don't want to go back to that. You guys have no idea what
I
it's
agree
like
with that.
to
100%.
deal with Elam. So, I mean, we need to figure out what's right, you know. And I'm not saying this isn't a problem that it's coming to the council. The problem is that it wasn't worked out in that meeting somehow and saying every option, what options are we looking at to bring to the council if we need to? And it's frustrating, heartbreaking, I'll use that word again, that Chief Shelley feels like he has to come to the council for, you know, a lifeline. Because when you're doing those inspections plus everything that he's done, I mean, I think you're a fantastic fire chief. I hope your guys.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
100%.
But it's like, you know, I've had the fire chief call me chicken shit before. The old one, right?
I've never done that.
About this type of discussion, you know, and it's like, hey, it's hard to say, you know what, we've given you everything that we possibly can. It was a hard decision. I mean, we talked about it for months, and I said no at the end because it's like, you know what, no, it's not coming through what it seemed like it was being sold as. And now you're here saying, hey, the thing that we were talking about, just, that was a few months ago. Don't worry about that. We're gonna do it somewhere else. And it's like, youch, this is hard. And I get it, because, I mean, that's where you get paid so much money, man.
I don't disagree with that. Can I say one thing? Because I keep getting thrown under
Yeah,
the
you can say
bus,
one
and it's
thing.
not fair that both Alan and Jared have attacked me here. I met with the mayor prior to that meeting earlier. I brought in those exact same four scenarios and presented them to Mayor Mitchell. I went into that meeting with those scenarios. In the process of that discussion, all of these were presented at different times. This is not brand new. That's all I'm going to say.
And I hope you don't, I'm sorry you feel like you're being thrown under the bus, because collectively,
Right, and I understand that. And
collectively, that's where.
I
you
don't want
guys-
this either, but you were the one that said that he's never been presented with this. That's not true.
He just said that.
Yeah.
He just said he's never seen
And
it.
we're gonna leave it at that.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's fine.
I mean,
Sounds good.
Good luck.
okay.
Thanks.
Who said that? Good job.
All right. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4, consideration of resolution 2023-30, supporting the display of the national motto at City Hall. As part of that, I just wanted to read the resolution that Mr. Brooks put in the packet. It indicates some of the reasons why we would do this. We'll start on the second whereas. This is whereas the same inspiring slogan is engraved above the entrance of the Senate chamber as well as above the Speaker's dais in the House of Representatives. And whereas in both War and Peace, these words have been a profound source of strength and guidance to many generations of America. And whereas the city desires to display this patriotic motto in the council chambers as a way to solemnize public occasions and express confidence in our society. So, one of the main reasons I would want to do that is I think it would just help dress up the council chambers a little bit. If you've ever watched the videos, it's just kind of a plain white wall behind us. Councilor Hanson sent an email or a message to us indicating that we don't have anything else back there. I think it'd be very appropriate to have the Riverdale City logo. I don't think we have a city seal, do we? That I'm aware of.
I think we do.
Do we have a city seal? If we
Yeah.
could have the city seal or something back there, yeah. Yeah. But I'm not saying we just need the big words, "In God We Trust," but I think it would be nice to have some sort of display behind here, both in our court and in our city council chambers. So,
Can I say a couple things, Mayor?
Yeah.
Not to take anything away from that. I think we kind of briefly explained this to you a couple of weeks ago. We were down at that Utah League of Cities and Towns, and there was a lady that approached us about this and said that, there's all kinds of people who are doing it. But I just wanted to read something that I pulled up today. Nothing can be more certain than that our country was founded in a spiritual atmosphere and with a firm trust in God. Those are the words of Florida Representative Charles Bennett when in 1955 he passed a bill that would require the words, "In God We Trust," be inscribed on all U.S. currency. And then subsequent to that, President Dwight D. Eisenhower on July 11th, 1955, made that a law. So it's been in place for a long time. And if you go back east, I've never been there personally, but I've seen the pictures of it. All the House chambers, House and Senate chambers, the court, all of them have that same reference in there at some point in time. So, people might think that's a little bit tacky, but I think it's kind of cool, to be honest with you, and it honors our history. Because that's our country was founded, whether you like it or not. Our country was founded not by religious men who were trying to get away from religion, even some of them. So that's where it's at.
any questions or comments?
What do you need from the council?
Uh,
Consensus?
Just a
What if you pass the resolution, then we'll look at some costs and stuff. We can probably, depend on how much it costs, but we'll come up with some ideas and whatnot on what it'll, I don't know what it's going to cost. I have no idea. We'll look at different things and see some of those options.
So a motion to approve that resolution.
I do have some comments.
Okay.
Because this is, I'm a little, you show up at a conference, the good idea fairy lands on your shoulder, and suddenly you're all hot to do something noble and great because it denotes deity. You're not, I don't know, this is, when you presented it 2 weeks ago, with saying it 3 or 4 times, no one's been, the lawsuits haven't come in. strikes me 20, 30 years ago, I'm old enough to remember, I lived in the South, and it was very common to have the Ten Commandments either in courthouses, in front of courthouses, on the wall of courthouses, you know, and that strikes of the Judeo-Christian ethics and work and background of the founding of America. And then there was a whole host of suits to get rid of the tablets or the monuments to the Ten Commandments and strike them from civic centers and courthouses, mostly courthouses. And so I see this as okay, we're not gonna talk about religion. This is the national motto, and grasp on that. And I just thought, okay, somewhere in the legislature in Utah, they saw that to make this on one of the most recent iterations of license plates that motto was on there. And I'm just going, oh, okay. And so it's like, I'm not feeling it, because I feel like the mayor and possibly the mayor and city manager are wanting to somehow inject deity, but we won't get sued, and it's just like, you haven't stated a reason why. I mean, you've read these three very nobly written. I say that with a little bit of sarcasm, because this is really, it doesn't say why you suddenly want to do this. And it's just like, I don't get it. You haven't convinced me. Okay, it's a white wall. Yippee skippy. Well, let's put the motto on there. It's just like, of all the things, I mean, we've got the pictures on the back wall. We can put a mural on the front wall. I mean, it's of all the things, and it's just like, this doesn't, something's off on this, and it's the lack of convictions as to why you're wanting to do this is what, I guess, what throws me. And I don't see it coming from the mayor. And it's just the latest feel-good, whatever, fad, whatever, but we won't get sued. Or we'll win a suit, and we're covered by it if we get sued. Anyway, it doesn't make sense for me.
Okay. Anyone else?
Anyone?
Oh, I'm waiting for discussion after the motion.
After the motion, okay.
Oh, I love it. It's like yeah, it's awesome. It's something that people should stand for. It's something you stood for in the military. I mean,
It's not about me, but thank you.
It's true. It's not about you. I think it's a wonderful thing. It's something that the country should be embracing. Riverdale should be embracing. We pray before our meetings. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. We have God in that. Is it enough? Maybe it's enough, but I love it. I think it's great. I think it's something that we should be proud of, and ask people. We ask for God's favor in everything we do. I personally ask to be an instrument in God's hand every day, and it's like something I would love to stand by and say, what, if we get sued, okay, I'm okay with suits. But what am I, the radical councilman or something like that? Whatever.
We know that.
Whatever that was, but you know what? I love it, and full support, happy and healthy, and I think it's wonderful.
Okay, and I agree with that. I don't know how things like the prayer got removed from Riverdale City, but I never supported that. I think that we should open with a prayer, and I was happy to see that change. And I'm not ashamed to have trust in God, and I'm happy to have that emblem on the wall. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Councilmember?
I don't even know how to say this in just small words, but I feel it's our nation's motto still for a reason. If that was supposed to have changed, I think there would be a lot more efforts to change that. I do see the locations where there's efforts to change the meaning and the premise of God being mentioned across the board in the Pledge of Allegiance, even just the "In God we trust" on currency and stuff. I've seen lots of opposition to that. So there's definitely efforts against it. I feel like as a council member, I'm accountable for my efforts in general, however big or small they can be, to stand for something greater. We do it every day, right? In the capacities that we're in, is stand for something greater. And I just think that being harmonious with what our country was founded on and what it's been fought for ever since, and to support kind of the nation's purpose, in my opinion. Like I said, on why it's still the motto. And I'm just not in support of, I guess, all of the efforts to take that away. And I'm in support of efforts to try to continue to highlight it in capacities that we can, because I just think we're running out of those opportunities. Kind of as time's going on, I feel like we're running out of those opportunities to even have the ability to stand for this, if that makes sense.
I can share my comment now if you want.
Okay, that's fine.
We can just move forward. And I wrote it out so that I could remember what I wanted to say. I understand why others on the council would want to move forward with this resolution. I believe our council are all good people and have a strong faith in God, and I've seen that. For me, personally, I feel that this has the possibility of alienating some of the members of our community, and that the group supporting it, that's part of their intent, and that it could be divisive, and I don't want to add to the divisiveness in our society today. In my opinion, this resolution isn't a priority for our community. Our council chambers, like you mentioned, don't reflect the city logo, any motto representing our own community. The state's motto isn't present in this room, and it doesn't feel like a matter of patriotism or urgency for it to come up now in this way. I love God, and I love Riverdale, and I don't believe that God is missing from our community, our city, or our meetings. At the beginning of each meeting, we pledge allegiance to the flag in the name of God, and then we pray to Him for guidance and protection and civility. And I don't believe that God is missing from Riverdale. And I think that all this has the opportunity of doing is adding divisiveness that none of us would want to portray to the members of our community. And that's all I had to say about it.
Thank you. Councilor Arnold.
I'd move to approve resolution 2023-30 as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion or comments on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Stevens?
No.
Counselor Hanson?
No.
Counselor Hilton?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Merrill?
Yes.
Okay. That passes with 3 in favor and 2 opposed. Thank you.
Apologize. No.
We did have a possibility of a closed executive session on the agenda. Mr. Brooks, do you see any reason to?
I don't think we need it.
This is hanging tight and you're saying no?
Okay.
Unless you want to do one on Stacy, should we do that? Just for the hell of it?
I think
Only
that's
if it's
it, yeah.
positive.
All right. We'll move on to comments. Any comments from the city council for the end of our meeting? Seeing none. Any comments from the city staff?
I would say one, and I don't know, that's neither here nor there. If you watched or looked at the citizens page today, did any of you see that later this afternoon? There was an individual who created an account just today and then posted all the salaries of city employees. So I bring that to your attention a little bit just because First of all, it's a little bit distorting. There's that website. This is not new. This is available to anybody. Something transparency. Yeah.
It's not even that one. It's something different altogether.
Yeah, but either way, we've never shied away from posting those things. We post them all the time. This is not new. Anybody's had access to that. But I guess the point that I make here is if we think people don't watch us, they're watching us, whatever we do. So we need to be careful on things. I mean, we just do. It's just factual. It's a little bit ironic on who they picked, and Stacy with her high dollar salary, she was one of them that got listed too. So
But the numbers were inflated, right? It
They're way
included
inflated.
benefits
That's with
on there.
benefits.
No, they're not
Yeah.
inflated.
it
They
includes
represent
benefits.
It
what
includes
costs
the
them.
full
Present it
compensation.
loaded, yeah.
No,
Right.
they represent what it costs the city to employ the person. So if the city is paying half of FICA, paying health insurance, paying their retirement fund, that's
All included,
Well, I'm
right?
just saying because he said it was salary, the person.
It's
that
not
posted it.
straight salary.
And it isn't
Well,
straight salary.
I'll talk to Mark Martinez too, because we had one strange name that was trying to cause problems with stuff, and I said, who is this guy? He's got 3 friends.
This guy's account was created today,
But
and
why?
he's from Nashville, Tennessee. It says
But why is that person allowed to post? They have to be accepted in the Riverdale Citizens page by an administrator. So, and I mean, it could be an administrator that's doing it, but they shouldn't do that. It's not the forum for that. So,
And just to talk about the inflated, like I double checked it on like the Utah, like I kind of went to some other sites, and it was way beyond even what Utah had. Like it
includes
was.
everything, but it misrepresents what
Salary.
the salary really is.
Yeah.
So
It-
to the listener, it sounds shocking that somebody makes
And
that.
and that's what they were doing. And you could look at any city and find the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all going to be. I mean, our system does that. Stacy does that every year. We look at other people. I mean, they're going to be equivalent to us. I mean, that's not. It's not just Riverdale. It's not.
But the people out there.
Years of service either, which I don't think
sure.
that's fair. I mean, somebody that's been in a job for 25, 30 years
Yeah.
compared to somebody that's been in a job for 2 years.
Yeah.
Of course, there's
The
gonna be a
people out there
large
receiving that
difference.
information are
Right.
comparing it to their own salary.
Right.
And that you can't compare that. So
You
somebody's
can't,
straighten that
but
out.
they don't put those variables in. I have a doctorate degree. I do make the most money in the city, but a lot of people with doctorate degrees make a lot of money. You know, I mean, that's factual too. And I'm wearing 2 hats. I mean, if you compared those 2 salaries together, it's not even close to what other people are making. So there's all kinds of variables into that kind of stuff. So
You just might get some comments about
I
it.
didn't know that was on the internet, so I can see where you're a little sensitive tonight.
Somebody
No.
can straighten that out. Do a good job.
Actually,
That's last year too.
we did have somebody already got in and kind of straightened it out. There's a very knowledgeable citizen,
Oh, good.
and he got in and made some really good comments.
I hadn't seen that. I just saw it as I was
Still
getting ready
leave
for
it
the meeting.
alone, to be honest.
We're not having a closed session?
No,
Oh, all
no,
right.
we didn't need it. So
Okay.
okay, so anything else, Mr.
No,
Brooks?
that's all.
Okay, so that was one of the things I was going to talk about. The other one was I've got 2 copies of this book. This is Where You Belong, The Art and Science of Loving the Place You Live. It's a really good book. One of the members of the Planning Commission recommended I read it. There's a couple of copies. You're welcome to take one and read it or share it. When you're done, give it to someone else.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
That
Just kind of a little spoiler, you're already doing one of the things you need to do to love your city. So, yeah,
one that you got.
but it's a pretty cool book.
Is it on Audible?
I'd imagine it is. And it is a little difficult. I know.
Page 3 says
Wait, yeah, so you,
I know you're.
it might be a different one.
Alan,
I know you're all busy, but I would recommend that you read it. So,
But I don't think you're subscribed to my newsletter.
okay. So with that, we're all done. We would need a motion to adjourn.
I haven't done one
second.
recently.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned.
good.